Have you ever considered what it's like to teach in another country? I moved to Australia during a global pandemic as a teacher, to teach, because that's what my visa was granted for. That's kind of how this country works with skilled migration. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. How different is teaching in Australia compared to my background in the UK, or from wherever you're teaching in the world? In this video I'm going to share with you 6 things you don't know about teaching in Australia. And you never know, you might decide to move over here too. The first one is that there are 4 terms, and no half terms. They're all 10 weeks long. That's 40 weeks in total, quick maths for an English teacher, all spread with a 2-week break in between, except for summer, and that's all of the time that's left. Now this is a far cry from the UK where we had 3 terms, all split into halves, with half terms as a week off, and then 2 weeks in between the terms. It's really quite complicated. But the point is, I never really had to go more than about 8 weeks until I had at least a week off. They give teachers too much time off, don't they? But a 4-term structure seems like more sense, doesn't it? Until you have to go through one, and you're not used to 10-week terms, and by week 7 or 8 you feel like the Walking Dead. It's been 3 years now and I'm still not really used to it. How much money are you paid to teach in the country that you're from? Because I know in the UK the pay is poor. Oh, we've got a new incentive now where we'll give you like 30 grand to be a teacher. 30 grand? But my student loan is like more than 50. What's the point? I genuinely don't know why people in the UK want to go into the teaching profession anymore. Well, if you use it as a stepping stone to get a visa to move to Australia like I did, they're going to pay you more. A lot more. My wage compared to the UK for doing less is more than 25% more. And if you work in preschool in Australia compared to the rest of the world, it could be as much as 35% more. Unfortunately, secondary teaching compared to the world is probably one of the lower ones. On average 11% more. So I'd be interested to know where you're from, where you probably get paid higher as a teacher than the UK. Nah, I probably wouldn't have wanted to go there. Not because I'd have wanted to have gone there. I love Australia. I'm just curious. Now, I never understood about how this next difference about teaching in Australia would really affect me actually as a teacher, because this one genuinely is more for the kids themselves. But in Australia, across the whole, there are less exams. Now, why does this affect me as a teacher, I hear you ask? Well, number one, there's less marking overall. Like exam marking, I still have to mark other things. Can we live in a world where you don't really have to mark things and they can just understand my feedback telepathically? But until that happens, less exams on the whole I think means happier kids. Less stressed kids. Kids that aren't constantly on this pursuit of academic success. Now I know what you're thinking, but isn't academic success a good thing? Like it's been ingrained into us that you need to be good at exams and get a really good grade at school. Well, unfortunately, mate, not everyone can be a doctor. So I think a society which is less focused on exams and is more focused on helping kids to excel at exactly what they're good at so that they can fulfill a range of achievements and jobs that will actually help service society really kind of helps me as a teacher. Let's face it, teachers are overworked, overstressed, probably not paid enough. And in Australia, they got really long 10-week terms. I mean, I'm really not selling the lifestyle, am I? But in comparison to the UK, I genuinely think there's a better work-life balance. Now, you can still be one of these teachers that's, I don't know, trying to work themselves into the ground. Why would you want to do that? You're not going to be a good teacher if you can hardly function because you're overworked. I mean, I guess that's what some people want to do. You do you, boo. But while the stresses and strains of teaching in Australia are still there like the UK, on the whole I think that most employers are in general less demanding, or at least there's an enterprise bargaining agreement in place that stipulates how much you actually really need to work. But I guess the best thing about work-life balance and teaching in Australia compared to the UK is for 6 months of the year I don't have to go to work in the dark and then come home in the dark. And most of that is in the pissing down of rain. Yeah, you feel a lot better about your work-life balance when you can actually do something on the weekend that you want to do. Just a thought. Now if you go to teach in another country, you're going to expect that the kids are kind of different in a way. But in comparison to the UK, I mean Australia isn't all that different. Let's face it, the kids might talk differently, say a few weird words, and have dodgy mullet haircuts. Or what is up with that one where they've just got the little braid thing in the back of their hair? Sometimes I'm really glad with not having to deal with stupid boy haircuts and having 2 girls. Because if I had a boy that had one of those haircuts, I would cut it off. But apart from that, in Australia, the kids are pretty much the same. You've got smart ones, you've got not so smart ones, you've got ones that just love to push your buttons, you've got ones that hardly say a word. On the whole, you just get the general mix across the spectrum of all the different types of kids in schools. And why? Because that's the spectrum of kids that you have across society. It doesn't really change. If you talk and act nicely to kids, 99 times out of 100 they're going to do the same for you. People don't do things for people they don't like. You don't have to be all nicey to make them like you, but just don't do anything to piss them off. So unnecessary. Teaching in the UK, particularly as a secondary teacher, you normally have one subject as your specialism. Unless you're a sports teacher and they just make you teach other things. But in the UK, mine was geography. I taught a bit of history, English, maths, but my main one was genuinely geography, because that's what I studied at university. Now, if you are a one subject wonder boulder like I am, that could be a little bit of a problem if you want to teach in Australia. Because it's pretty commonplace that teachers here teach multiple subjects. Again, they'll have their specialism. Everyone has a specialism, that's just what they're good at, isn't it? But if you come to Australia and you can teach other subjects, then schools will look upon you more fondly like a jack of all trades. And let's face it, if you do have a specialism that is pretty niche, being able to teach a bit of English, maths or science is really going to help you out with job applications. So if you're looking to move over here, maybe bear that in mind and just opt to teach something else for a bit so you can have that on your resume. And yeah, they call it a resume here, not a CV. When you say CV, they kind of look at you almost as weirdly as if you want to say, oh, can I stroke your dog? Yeah, that's a whole nother story. General rule as a teacher, just don't say you want to stroke anything, otherwise you might lose your teaching license.
If you're fed up of teaching in your country and want to move to Australia, or you need to get your teaching qualifications assessed and you have no idea how to do it, then you need to speak to someone who can help you out. Australia is one of those annoying countries that just doesn't let anyone in. And realistically, if I hadn't got any help, I'd probably still be crying in the back of some classroom in the UK. To help you out and plan what you need to do next, speak to our friends True Blue Migration Services. And when you mention us, let them do the hard work of navigating the ever-changing Australian visa system and use their free visa assessment service so they can tell you exactly what you need to do to realise your dreams down under. As the only MARA registered visa company we trust, and we're not the only ones as they have hundreds of 5-star Google reviews. You can even check them out if you need help falling asleep. In fact, they're so slick that if you decide to use them, they'll pretty much do all of the hard work for you in securing your visa for you and your family to live their best life. So what are you waiting for?
Now, if you've lasted this long learning about things they don't tell you about teaching in Australia, then I'm going to give you one sneaky extra. And this one's important, particularly if you genuinely want to move here, because you could come a cropper. But in Australia, if you want to teach, you need a 4-year degree. And if you're watching this from the UK, yeah, I know what you're thinking. We don't really have 4-year degrees. Degrees in the UK are 3 years. How do you get your 4th year? Well, like me, you have to go back to university and do a PGCE so that you can become a teacher. But what happens if you did one of those on-the-job training type things? You might have a bit of a problem. How else can you make up your 4 years? Could get a master's. That isn't really worth the paper that it's written on. But at least it gets you up to your 4 degrees, so you qualify to teach in Australia. Australians are very much about equivalent qualifications. So because they do 4 years at university, you've got to do 4 years at university. And particularly for some teachers in the UK, especially primary school teachers, not having a 4-year university qualification or the ability to prove it can be a little bit of a problem. Now, I don't know what the solution is apart from do one of the things that gets you that extra year at university. So if you want some more tips to do with moving to Australia, then watch this video. See you soon.